Welcome everyone to this discussion on this fantastic topic of demystifying Krishna on the eve of Janmashtami, that is the holy appearance day of Lord Krishna. Currently, there are various myths or beliefs about Krishna, mainly amongst the millennials and the Gen Zs, and we would try to demystify the same through this question and answer session. And who can be the better person than today's revered guest, His Grace Radhapad Das, who have dedicated his life for the purpose of spreading the glories of Krishna. Radhapad Prabhu has done his BTech from NIT Bhopal in 2008. He has worked as an assistant manager at SNC Lavalin in civil design at New Delhi for a couple of years. Thereafter, he served as a general manager at ISKCON Ujjain from 2011 to 2013. So for our viewers who don't know what ISKCON is all about, so ISKCON is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, been established in 1966 in New York City by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who was from Calcutta, India. ISKCON currently has around 850 temples across the globe, and along with the eco-villages and various centers. And this is a special year for ISKCON. I know, Prabhu, we have been celebrating 125th birth anniversary of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu served as a temple president at ISKCON Panihati in West Bengal, and he's serving till date. And for viewers who don't know what is Panihati, is one of those sacred places in the planet Earth. And Radhapad Prabhu has been very fortunate in driving ISKCON's initiative in the Holy Land. Radhapad Prabhu has been an international speaker. He's been apt in Hindi, English, Marathi, Bengali, and also in French. And he has been a youth counselor, life coach, fitness enthusiast, and a Bhakti Yoga trainer. So with these words, welcome Radhapad Prabhu, and thank you really so much for taking time for us from your busy schedule. Welcome, Radhapad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for inviting me for this show, and let us look forward to the questions.
Yeah, Prabhu. We also have with us an eminent Kathak dancer, Mrs. Vidisha Bose, with us. Happy Janmashtami, Vidisha ji.
Happy Janmashtami. Welcome Radhapad Das ji. Welcome Kuheli ji. Today's millennials, I would say, are not totally in contact with spirituality and its relevance in Kathak, relevance in the classical arts. So I would just give a small background, because it's a very vast subject, that the Vaishnavite cult which swept North India and the resultant Bhakti movement contributed to a spurt in literature, lyrics, musical forms, and the Radha Krishna theme proved immensely popular for Kathakars, along with the works of Sant Kabir, Surdas, Chandidas, Tulsidas, Vidyapati, and the like. And the emergence of Raslila, mainly in Braj, Mathura region, was an important development. It combined poetry, music, dance, and narrative. And dance in Raslila is one of the extensions of Kathak. And the poetry also includes, actual dance bowls. Like we have put in dance bowls to make it danceable. There's so many thousands. Nadi ke tat tit kadam dhruma tal natat nat varata kat radha dinat dina dinat kat tak tak atak draga draga thei ta thei. Draga draga means dekhna. Umang झिझकत लचक झिझकना झिझकता वो बोल उसी तरह लिया गया कि झिझक रहे. उमंग झिझकत लचक धीरकत तक झेंग कड़दे नागेदत घेंतदा घेनदा घेतक धीनदा घेतक धीनदा घेतक धीनदा. In this way they have combined, they have taken in the essence and the the spirituality. Like the evolution of Kathak also takes small portions about the birth of Krishna, Bal Krishna episodes, then around Krishna, Radha and the Sakhis. And then when ultimately Krishna leaves Radha, leaves his flute and goes away in search of the greater, his greater purpose in life. Various episodes from the Mahabharata which also includes Draupadi. So Kathak taps into the mystical content actually. Apart from the Nritta, which is the pure technical form, it also taps into the mystical content, which is preaching devotion and service to humanity. I just wanted to say this much. So we have some questions regarding Kathak to Radhapada Das ji.
Thank you so much. Today we also have Kuheli Chatterjee from Satviki Youth Take Lead. So how are you doing, Kuheli Chatterjee?
Namaste. It feels delightful to be part of this sunny and rosy conversation. And I wish happy Janmashtami to our guest, His Grace Radhapad Das ji, and to our viewers and to all of you. In Youth Tech Lead, we do fundamental capacity building for young entrepreneurs in the age group of 14 to 30 years. And today's conversation about demystifying Krishna is pertinent to young professionals as they want to understand Krishna and his world famous teachings.
Well, that's understood. That's great. So thank you for all the introductions, and now let's go to the question and answer session. If I may ask the first question, Prabhu. So firstly, there are very many people have this question that did he ever live on the earth like a god, or he was a historical personality? So if you just can clarify that myth.
Well, thank you so much. This is a frequently unanswered question. So, is Krishna a historical personality? Yes, Krishna is very much a historical personality. It is not an imagination. And the fact remains that he is not just a historical person, but on top of it, he is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is God himself. Now, there are many non-believers who say that Krishna is just a historical personality and the pastimes linked to him are all exaggerations. But for them, Krishna says, Avajananti mama mudha, manushim tanumashritam. He descends on this earth, but not just as a historical personality, but as God in his transcendental form. Therefore, his activities are not ordinary, but transcendental. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame divyam. Janma, his birth is transcendental. Because you see, Krishna was not born out of sexual union, but he was transferred from Vasudeva's heart to Devaki's heart, and from there to Devaki's womb. And then he did not come out of a delivery hall or you say labor room. No, he just appeared. Now, next comes karma. Karma means his pastimes, his activities. So you see, Krishna's activities are transcendental. We see when he was 7 years old, he just picked up a small, with his the small finger of his left hand, he picked up the whole Govardhan hill. So his activities, they are a proof, a living proof that these are very uncommon. See, for a small baby, a small person, a small baby to lift a whole mountain, forget of lifting a mountain, to even lift a small table is almost impossible. So Krishna as a person, when he does that, so we have to understand that the purpose of Krishna's advent has been specifically mentioned in our scriptures, the prime of which is Srimad Bhagavatam. People in general, they do not have any conception of who God is, and most of them, they manufacture various forms by mental speculation. Now, to give everyone a proper understanding about who God actually looks like, God reveals himself, because without God's mercy, one cannot understand God. So this is a very, very important point that we should take in. Now, coming to Krishna's death, see, historical persons, they appear and they disappear. So our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, he would give an example of the sun, which appears daily. It rises from the eastern direction and then it sets in the western direction. So it is continuously shining somewhere on the earth. So it is not that the sun has gone out, the sun does not exist anymore. So similarly, Krishna, his pastimes, they appear, it seems that they are appearing and disappearing, but they are continuously going on in one part of the universe or another. And also great personalities like Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya, even Shankaracharya, although he's a Mayavadi, even he accepted Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. He says Narayana Paro Avyaktat, which means Narayana, he is the supreme person. Now Narayana is another name of Krishna. So still those who don't believe in what Krishna says, he guarantees in the Bhagavad Gita there is no happiness either in this life or the next. So they are kind of unlucky what to do.
I think because these activities are so beyond our human perception.
Yes.
That's the reason they think that it's not humanly possible. I mean, these are all myths, maybe.
Correct. I mean, people will always perceive so many things. You see, we cannot really see when there is dark. So even if the whole room is dark, I cannot see my own hand. What to speak of what is happening beyond these four walls? I cannot see beyond Vibgyor. I can see a small perception of the reality. I have a very small perception of reality, which is limited to violet to red. So I cannot see ultraviolet, I cannot see infrared, but things always exist in that spectrum also. So therefore, imagining something is not really the best part of it. So God lies beyond our imagination. So if you want to understand him, the right way to understand him is to hear from authorized persons, refer to authorized scriptures, and there is a bona fide process to understand him.
So I have a question, Prabhu. We hear and read in our folklores and in Srimad Bhagavatam also that river Yamuna parted to let Vasudev cross over to the other side. Today's generation might wonder, how is it possible in reality? So could you please throw some light on this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, river Yamuna parted to let Vasudev cross. Now Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Maya so he is the president. Under his superintendence, the whole material creation is functioning. So if he is the lawmaker, if he is the lawgiver, he can also defy the laws. So it is not impossible for him. See, it is just like a king visiting the prison house. If a king visits the prison house, the prisoners, the foolish amongst them, might think that he is also subject to the laws of the prison house. But this is not true. Because a king, as a visitor, is on a regular visit. So when he is on a visit, the laws of the jail do not apply on him. So similarly, Krishna being the controller of the whole material creation, when he comes, for Yamuna to part apart to give way for Krishna to pass, it's not a big deal. I mean, these are, it's just common sense. We see that when Ramchandra, he wanted to cross the ocean. So he acted like a common man because he was here to set the Maryada. Therefore, he is known as Maryada Purushottam. Therefore, he prayed to the ocean god. And surprisingly, when the ocean god didn't appear and didn't hear his request, he wanted to dry up the whole ocean with a single arrow of his. So he could use his mystical powers. But then he behaved like an ordinary man. He behaved like an ideal king. He prayed to the ocean, which means he petitioned the higher powers. He was teaching us that there are people who are controlling this whole material manifestation, and we should be thankful to them. We should have a heart full of gratitude towards them, and therefore we pray. See, even aborigines in the forest, they also pray when there is a great rainfall or there is a hurricane. They also pay their respects. So even Ramchandra, he was playing the part of an ideal human being. So he did that, but eventually when he wanted to cross, he could make stones float on water. So if Ramchandra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if he can make the big planets float in vacuum, as the scientists say, so what big deal is for him to make some stones float on water? So basically we have to hear from the right authorities to understand this. We need the right professors to understand a particular subject. We cannot understand a particular subject by our own whims. You see, for a small child who is studying in class 4th, if you ask him, what is 2 minus 5? So he will say, uncle, I have 2 chocolates, how can you take 5 from me? But if the same child, when he goes to class 6th or 7th, he reads and understands the concept of numbering. So he will immediately say minus 3. Now for an 8th standard kid, if you ask him what is square root of minus 8 or minus 4, he won't be able to answer. But for someone who is studying in the higher secondary, if you ask him what is square root of minus 4, he will say 2 iota, because he has understood the complex numbers, the concept of complex numbers. So see, there is higher and there is lower mathematics. So for a person who is not aware of higher mathematics, he will always claim that no, all of whatever you are saying, this is a fallacy and this is saffronism and you are trying to just convert us. But this is absurd. I mean, give me a break. We can understand these subjects when we come to the right professors, we hear from them in a bona fide manner, and that is the way to understand why Yamuna parted to let Vasudev cross. I hope that clarifies the whole thing.
Yeah, wonderful.
There is
Yes,
a slightly sensitive topic with regards to today's environment. We often, as Kathak artists, we often show a little chhed-chhad between Krishna and Radha or between Krishna and a Sakhi, which is often construed in the modern world as, e-teasing. Which can you just tell me what the meaning of chhed-chhad in that concept? I always tell my students that Radha is always, in a spiritual sense, she is with Krishna. She is not someone like you're going on the road and someone e-teases you. You don't know that person and your heart does not already belong to that person or spiritually belongs to that person, that you can say is e-teasing. But if you can just explain this concept, because some senior dancers are moving away. It is a very beautiful dance concept in Kathak, and I would like to take that tradition forward, but I would also like to silence those critics. So I want some, nice rapid fire from you.
Thank you so much for this question. Many a times, especially millennials, college goers, they often say this: Krishna kare to lila, or hum kare to character dhila. So this is also a frequently unanswered question. It is grossly misunderstood. You see, Krishna has got 3 kinds of energies. One of them is external energy, internal energy, and then there is a marginal energy. So you see, gopis, they belong to the internal potency of Krishna. Now, if Krishna really, if he did something wrong by stealing the garments of gopis, he was doing this chhed-chhad with gopis, then why would a chaste lady like Draupadi, he would seek his help when her clothes were being dragged? Can you see the connection? I mean, does it sound logical for a person who is in distress to approach someone who is of a fishy character? I mean, does it really make sense? I don't think so. In the prayer, Draupadi refers to Krishna as Gopijana Priya, or beloved of gopis. Why? How can he become beloved of gopis if he had really done chhed-chhad? So you see, even in Srimad Bhagavatam, nowhere it is mentioned that gopis were disturbed by Krishna's activities. On the contrary, they were pleased because they wanted Krishna as their husband, and Krishna was behaving accordingly. You see, in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it mentions that gopis were fully immersed in love for him, and that particular month they prayed to goddess Katyayani. The prayer goes as Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogin Nadeshwari Nanda Gopasutam Devi Patim Me Kurte Namah. They were praying to goddess Katyayani so that they can become the consorts of Krishna. They can marry Krishna. And then Krishna fulfilled their prayers. Why? Because he stole their garments and he wanted all of these gopis to come to him one by one, fully naked. Now, how can a chaste lady become naked in front of anyone else? In Vedic tradition, if this happens, then they are out. No one will marry them. So by performing this activity, he proved that he is their real husband. So we have to understand this context, this this whole pastimes in the right context, and we have to hear from the right person. I mean, what to speak of Kathak? Any dance. Let us concentrate on Kathak. Even in the middle of Ras Leela, when he was in the middle of Ras Leela with thousands of women surrounding him, young, beautiful girls, in the dead of the night, with no one to stop him, why would Krishna leave?
Exactly.
Can you tell me a similar person in a similar situation who can even imagine to leave? You see, Krishna is God and he is supremely renounced. So that is one of his renunciation, that is one of his opulences. That even in the midst of the opportunity to enjoy, he can renounce it and just go outside. What does that mean? The purpose behind this whole incident is to prove that Ras Leela is meant for his enjoyment. And still, he is not attached. Although he can enjoy and he can still go away, he can just pass the buck. Therefore, when we say chhed-chhad, I don't know what it refers to. Maybe it refers to Eve teasing. But then what about Adam teasing? Nowadays, this concept has been floating around in the social media. Coming back to our point, now Krishna did this, chhed-chhad, if that's the right term to use, simply to please his devotees who wanted to serve him as husband. He says in Gita, Ye yatha mam prapadyante. Also in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Anugrahaya Bhaktanam. I can give you n number of references from the scriptures. In Damodarashtakam we say, Iti Driksvalila Bhirananda Kunde, Swagosham Nimajjantam Akhyapayantam. He is Bhaktavatsal, he loves his devotees. And his mischief is only to immerse his devotees in a reservoir of divine bliss. So when we say chhed-chhad and we use loose terms to denote a person who is so great that he is beyond even our imagination. So I don't think we are doing real justice to it.
Exactly. I think more reading of the Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita is required by, like we used to have Amar Chitra Katha, which tells us about mythological and historical. We should have, I think, Bhagavatam in the form of Amar Chitra Katha episodes, so that common people also get into the spirituality aspect of what they are terming as in loose terms.
You see, when people talk about chhed-chhad, then they take him to be a historical personality. And when he says that he lifted the Govardhan hill, then they say it is mythology.
Exactly.
What is your reference? I mean, one part you say it is history, and another part you say no, it is imagination. So how can the same book refer to both history and imagination at the same time? So it's absurd. I mean, it's very loose logic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Radhika Prabhu. Another question that I had was, there are a lot of spectacular pastimes that Krishna did while he was doing his Leela over here, and they have quite a bit of learning for all generations as well. So one of the Leelas that we hear of is when Krishna banished Kalyanag from Yamuna. So on this incident, what is the learning that we take from this episode in our modern life, so to say?
Yes, Kalyanag. So, you see, Krishna vanishing Kalyanag. So, Kalya was disturbing the denizens of Vrindavan. And Krishna, you see, he never tolerates the pain of his devotees. I think there is an English expression to it, love me, love my dog. So if we want to really love Krishna, we have to love his devotees. So you see, Krishna never tolerates. And Krishna assured Kaliya that even though his poison fangs were broken, nobody will harm him due to the imprints of his lotus feet. So whoever takes shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, he'll become fearless, as Krishna's protection is guaranteed. So therefore, even when Kaliya was being banished, it was not that Kaliya will not be able to eat or sleep anymore. Krishna imprinted his lotus feet so that Garud cannot eat him or disturb him anymore. So what God does is good for everyone. He's all good. He's omnibenevolent. Therefore, to understand God, we have to understand God in totality. We cannot just take one small pastime or Leela out of context and then use it as we want. So that will not really clarify the whole picture.
In that ways, everybody gets his shelter, even Kalia
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But you have to just surrender without thinking anything. Suppose you said, tell a child take 2 somersaults. He will just do it. But if you tell an adult, he will have 10 other thoughts. If I do somersault, this will happen, that will happen, that will happen. Isn't it? So go with
Yeah.
a pure mind. Go with a pure mind. Like, I would also like to ask, like, do you think, like, when Krishna as a strategist and Chanakya as a strategist of state, do you think they are quite similar? Because Krishna, he gave his army to the Kauravas and he himself went with the Pandavas. What kind of strategy has that? And well, they all said that Arjuna didn't want to fight, but he told him to fight. Like, what is the issue there? How, as a strategist, how is it that happens?
I must admit, frankly, that these are really good questions. I mean, Krishna and Chanakya. First of all, we have to understand that the source of all intelligence and knowledge is Krishna, as he himself states in Bhagavad Gita. Buddhi jnanam sammoha, dama satyam damasham. So the source of Chanakya's intelligence is also Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that all intelligence, all knowledge, and even forgetfulness come from me. So if everything is springing forth from Krishna, if he is the fountainhead of everything that exists, then I don't think that Chanakya's intelligence is coming from somewhere else. It is Krishna who is supplying the intelligence to Chanakya as well. So now you see, Krishna is a strategist too. But the goal of his strategy is paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushtatam, dharma sansthapanarthaya. So there is no selfish motive involved there. Krishna chalked out many strategies during the Kurukshetra war so that the Pandavas could win, but not for his personal benefit, like Chanakya. Because you see, Chanakya wanted Chandragupta to win because if Chandragupta would win, he would be able to maintain Chanakya. So even though we respect Chanakya as a great strategist, we have this place designated in New Delhi as Chanakya Puri, where all the diplomats, whenever they come to India, they have a place to stay. But still, I mean, giving with all respects to Chanakya, Krishna wanted Yudhishthir to win because Yudhishthir was his devotee and he would take his subjects to Krishna's kingdom to become Krishna conscious too. And it would be a kingdom which he would reign it in the strictest sense of dharma. So to establish dharma, to establish real religion, Krishna made all the strategies he made. Therefore, the ultimate concern of God is to benefit mankind and to reclaim not just mankind, every other person, all his fallen sons and daughters, to bring all of them back to him. So this shows that Krishna is eagerly waiting to have us back to him, for which he sent Srila Prabhupada. You see, our founder Acharya, we are celebrating his 125th anniversary this year. So he was an old man and he left India, he left Vrindavan, the highest spiritual place for, especially for Vaishnavas. He left it at the age of 70 and he went to America. And then he started a whole spiritual movement which spread throughout the world in the next 11 years. He circumambulated the whole globe 14 times. I mean, just imagine, for a 70-year-old man. And he started with 40 rupees and that built up to 40 crores. So even from a strategic point of view, even from a business point of view, what he did was amazing. It's beyond imagination. It's much more than what Christ did or what Muhammad did. I mean, no religious preacher in the history of the world has taken to the toughest audience. It was not his home playground. It was a totally different audience. Their language was different. Their mentality was different. The socio-cultural upbringing was different. Still, Srila Prabhupada made them, converted them into lovers of God. And with these youngsters, he created a worldwide movement. So, yes, Krishna is a strategist, but at the same time, he's God too. Chanakya was a strategist, we agree to that. He's a great person, but the source of his intelligence is also Krishna.
I have a question on behalf of the budding entrepreneurs. If they want to build a relationship with God, how will it help them in their entrepreneurial journey as the journey is full of uncertainty? Will it be of help if they want to build a relationship with Lord Krishna?
Good. Now, entrepreneurship in Krishna consciousness. So, you see, uh, I would say that the most essential aspect in entrepreneurship is to remain anxiety free. Some entrepreneurs retrace their steps due to lack of courage for taking bold steps. Now, building a relationship with Krishna means performing every activity in a spirit to serve Krishna. So, an entrepreneur who has a relationship with Krishna ultimately wants to serve Krishna through his business venture. Therefore, his consciousness is absorbed more in Krishna than in his uncertain future. Thus, he becomes fearless and he can fearlessly take bold steps in a spirit to serve and please Krishna. Now, again, referring to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada explains how can one become fearless while describing the qualities of Abhayam. Even in the midst of great difficulties, a person who loves Krishna, who wants to serve him, he is fearless. Why? Because his objective is to serve, right? So even though one may take to entrepreneurship, there will be anxieties, and if we want to be free from anxieties, then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated in his consciousness, which is known as Krishna consciousness. In that way, we will be able to be free from all sorts of fear. Now, what is the source of fear? So, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshatasya. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not this material body, but they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Person, and the aim of their life is to be engaged in the service of the Supreme Person, they have nothing to fear, right? Their future is very bright. See, Krishna, he promises in Gita, Yogakshema Mahamyam. You see this LIC, Life Insurance Corporation of India, they have this tagline, Yogakshema Mahamyam. So what does it refer to? He preserves a devotee. He preserves what a devotee has and he provides what he lacks. So when Krishna sees that an entrepreneur who is a devotee genuinely wants to serve him, then surely he will provide him with success. Again, I will refer to the best example as Srila Prabhupada. He started this movement with 40 rupees, ended up in 108 palatial temples. So Krishna provided him because his pure intention was to serve him. Also, he was fearless and not at all disturbed by uncertainty because he knew that since whatever he is doing is to please Krishna, therefore Krishna will definitely help him succeed in his mission. So basically, whatever activities we do, we have to offer it to Krishna.
Yeah, I think building from that, Prabhu, the another question that we had was in terms of one of the teachings of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, it talks about to do our work without being attached to the results. So be it any professional or entrepreneur or howsoever, whatever capacity is working in. So some practical tips, if you can let us know, how do we actually achieve that in terms of not being attached, working in not being attached to the results?
See, this is a grossly misunderstood concept in India. People say, हाँ कर्म करो फल की चिंता मत करो तो कर्म करके मतलब ही क्या है? But this is another absent. I mean, this is
I mean, some of the employers will take this and say that you don't expect bonuses because you don't have rights to the results.
Yeah, but you have a right to perform your duty. Karmani eva adhikaraste. You have a right to plan. Who stops you from planning? Now, when the result comes, you offer the result. So not that you offer everything and you have nothing left for yourself. Krishna does not really want that. He wants the spirit behind it. He wants you to give him the credit, because ultimately he is supplying you with the necessary intelligence and the resources by which you can achieve your so-called goals in life. So basically, coming to the practicality of it, like Arjun, he fought not for his personal gain. He wanted to renounce. He wanted to take sannyas. Krishna said, no, you can't take sannyas. Ma manusmad yuddhechu, you remember me and you fight. So the whole aim was to please
Yeah.
Krishna. So that is yoga karmasu kaushalam. So therefore, say for instance, if we are artists, so we can draw Krishna's pictures instead of drawing some licentious and some portraits, something portrayed in a very bad taste. We can portray how Krishna is establishing dharma, right? So that can be one way. If you are a musician, you can sing for Krishna. Now, when it comes to dedicating the result of his activities, so what is the result of the activities? It is name and fame. It is money.
Money.
It is some monetary reimbursement, right? Some material facilities that we are getting. So why not use them in the service of Krishna, right? So by doing this, we can practically offer the results of our activities to Krishna. If you are a good cook, you can cook for Krishna. Offer him nice foodstuffs. So whatever you do it for Krishna's pleasure. But it should be guided. So therefore we need guru. Even for a truck driver, you have a person cleaner and the cleaner addresses his driver as Ustad. So even for driving something like a truck, you need an Ustad. And what to speak of understanding God? You don't need an Ustad. I presume that for learning Kathak, there are great Ustads who are around and you have to really surrender unto them. So what to speak of understanding God?
एब्सोल्युटली बोलते हैं तुम्हारा इतना मंदिर मतलब इमारत खड़े कर चुके हो अपने ऊपर, तुम क्या समर्पण सीखोगे? आर गुरु टेल अस तो समर्पण करो तभी यू विल गेट, मतलब तुम चीजें लेते रहते हो और आत्मा से मिलन नहीं है. दैट्स व्हाट आर गुरु टेल अस. आत्मा से मिलन नहीं है तो कैसे उसका एसेंस ले पाओगे? दैट इज व्हाट आर गुरु टेल अस. So what is like Krishna? Now we know like he was the Godhead or something like that because we know of all the leelas or whatever his. So what? How was he like a hero back then? Was he like so many years back, 5,000 years back or so? I don't know. Like what was his greatest popularity? You would say.
See, Krishna as a person, he was very popular. He is the hero of this whole incident and episode of Mahabharata. So first of all, we have to understand that who Krishna is. So you see, the father of Vyasadev, Parashar Muni, in Vishnu Puran, he defines who is God. Aishwaryasya, Samagrasya, Viryasya, Yashasa Shriya, Jnana Vairagyascha, Shannam Bhagam Itim Gana. Now, someone may say, why you are just giving us Gyan. But you see, I am referring to the standard text and scriptures. I am not answering anything whimsically. So, who is God? He is the possessor of six opulences, one of which is fame. Therefore, whatever Krishna did, all those activities make him a legend. Even when he took the most ordinary role as a chariot driver, he became famous as Parthasarathi. When he fled from the battlefield, so people who flee from the battlefield, they are known as Bhagoda in Hindi. But we have the temples of Ranchhod Rai. Now, even when he flees the battlefield, he is celebrated as God, and we worship him. Whenever he would steal butter, so he is the celebrated butter thief. For anyone else who steals, he'll be subject to punishment. So his activities, they are making him famous. What about Bhagavad Gita? We have been referring to this Bhagavad Gita from day one. Krishna, in our material sense, in our material vision, he disappeared 5,000 years ago. Then why are we discussing Bhagavad Gita today? So this very fact proves that he is very famous. His teachings are still relevant and they will continue to be relevant for coming day and age. Why? Because Krishna is on the absolute platform. So Krishna, his names, his teachings, his personality, his form, his pastimes, they are not different from him. Why? Because it is Advaya Gyan. It is on the absolute plane. There is no difference between him and his name. Therefore, when we chant Krishna's names, then we become satisfied. Why? Because it satisfies the spirit soul. As spirit souls, we are part and parcels of the supreme whole, Krishna. So when the whole is satisfied, the parts become satisfied themselves. When we water the roots of the tree, the whole tree gets nourished. When we feed the stomach, the whole body gets energized. So similarly, when we serve Krishna, then we will become satisfied. So Krishna as a living legend, yes, he's a legend. He was a legend, but we have to understand it in the right way. First of all, we have to understand that he is not a person like us. Our bodies are subject to birth, death, old age, and disease, but Krishna's body is transcendental. So he does not really die in that sense. He appears and he disappears. He appears somewhere else to continue his pastimes, uh, to benefit people from his teachings and his life.
Yes, Prabhu. And that's why we celebrate his birthday after 5,000 years as well, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't have celebrated anybody else's birthday after 5,000 years.
So
Yeah.
do you think he will come again on the earth? Like people want, ye Kal Yuga aa gaya, Krishna should have another incarnation and come to the earth.
Krishna is already incarnated. He came to the earth approximately 500 years ago as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he is still living in the form of his holy names. So when we chant the holy names of Krishna, we are in direct communion with him. Again, because Krishna and his names are non-different, it is non-dual. So therefore, when we chant Krishna's names, we come in contact with him. Now, if we want to see Krishna in flesh and blood like a person before us, then we have to wait, because there is a time when Krishna appears. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever there is a decline in the religious principles, and Krishna appears to save the devotees, to kill the miscreants. So yes, he did appear 5,000 years ago. He did appear 500 years ago. He's still existing in his holy name. So if we want, we can petition his mercy by taking the help of his philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, chanting his holy names, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, associating with his devotees, taking to a religious lifestyle, dharmic lifestyle. So by doing this, we can be in touch with him constantly, and we can see him face to face if we hear from a bona fide authority with attention again and again.
Wonderful. So with this, we have come to the end of this really exciting discussion. Thank you so much, Radhapat Prabhu, for all your insights. So before we leave, any last words from you, Radhapat Prabhu, for the young generation, if you want to?
The young generation, you see, spiritual life is not about rituals. In India, we always find this problem. It's a common problem everywhere almost, that there is a generation who are very much fond of the rituals, and then we see that there are certain individuals who just want the spirit, who just say, or who claim that if we have the right spirit, then things make sense. But you see, spirit plus ritual makes it spiritual. So we need the spirit and we need the ritual as well. So becoming spiritual doesn't really mean that you have to have a hairstyle like me. Being spiritual doesn't mean that you have to have a dress code like me. No, you can still be in your position. Sthane sthita shrutikata tanumang manobhir. Ya praya se ajito jito pais trilokyam. So Krishna says, if you hear from him, giving up all sorts of mental speculations and imaginations, then you can conquer the unconquerable. The unconquerable Krishna. Ajita, jitopes. He's unconquerable. Even he can be conquered. How? By hearing from the bona fide authorities. You have to take to a higher purpose in life. Understand that life has a higher purpose. Take to it and lead a sattvic life. Of course, we can't do all nonsense and still claim to be practicing religionists. This is the problem in modern age. This world, there are many so-called renunciates who do all sorts of nonsense in the name of religion, and that's what has been pushing intelligent people, educated people away from spirituality. So if we take to the bona fide process of bhakti, if we take to the right scriptures, the best of which is Bhagavad Gita, and if we accept the shelter of a bona fide spiritual teacher like His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, then we can actually understand and practice spirituality in our modern life and age. So I
Wonderful.
congratulate all of you for taking this initiative, demystifying Krishna and helping our young generation understand the importance of practical spirituality in their life. I thank you very much for giving this opportunity on this platform to interact with all of you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Radhapat Prabhu, and thank you, Vidisha Bose and Koili Chatterjee, for asking those exciting questions. And thank you all for watching, and wish you all a very happy Janmashtami. Thank you.
Very
Happy
enthralling.
Janmashtami.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question, Prabhu, that in our folklores and in Srimad Bhagavatam also we read and hear that river Yamuna parted to let Vasudev cross over to the other side. So today's millennials would wonder how is it possible in reality. So could you please throw some Wonderful answer. So I have one more question for the young entrepreneurs, because if they want to have and build a relationship with Krishna, how will it help them in their entrepreneurial journey? Because the journey is full of uncertainty, and will it be of help if they build a relationship with Lord Krishna?